We are live.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Welcome, everyone. I'm Mary Beckman. I'm the Acting Secretary for Health and Human Services. It's my first Connector Board meeting, and I just wanted to say a couple of words of introduction. I know some of you, but not all of you. And for context, I am in this position at the request of the governor. Kate Walsh is going to be joining the administration as the permanent Secretary of Health and Human Services on March 1st. So this may be my only chance to chair this laudable board meeting, and it's really a thrill to be here. My background is in and around healthcare for a long time. I'm an attorney. I spent some time in private practice, then was in the Weld, Salucci, and Swift administrations in legal counsel and health and human services roles. Spent a long time at Boston Children's Hospital doing compliance work. And then for the last 10 plus years, was in the Attorney General's office in the, overseeing public charities. And then for Maura Healey as Attorney General, overseeing healthcare and fair competition. So from that perspective, I have watched and sort of participated from a limited role in some of the healthcare transformations in the Commonwealth over the last actually couple decades. But one of the exciting pieces of that, of course, is the creation of the connector. So that's me. I will continue on at HHS as a senior advisor to Secretary Walsh once she starts. So I may continue to be involved and will certainly continue to be a resource on things healthcare and HHS. And I understand we also have another new board member, Eric Gulko. Eric, do you want to say hello and a couple words about yourself?
Sure, thanks, Mary. My name's Eric Gulko. I am a small business owner. I'm the founder and president of Innovo Benefits Group. We're employee benefits brokers, HR consultants. I'm also on the board of what was called MASAHU, now called National Association of Benefits Insurance Professionals. We represent all the employee benefit brokers in the state and our national organization nationally. And we try every day to work hard to find access and reasonably costed health insurance and other benefits for employers and their employees throughout the state. So I'm here to represent all of those types of folks as a member of the board. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, welcome. I think then at this point, I would like to call the meeting to order. Kathy, can you do a roll call vote for that purpose?
I absolutely can. Good morning, everyone. Martha.
I always do that. I'm here. Thank you.
Michael.
I am here.
Great. Elaine. I'll come back. Eric.
I'm here.
John.
I'm here as well.
Great. Keisha.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. Dimitri, in case I might have missed him. Okay. Secretary.
Here.
Good morning, Nancy. You.
Good morning, Kathy. I'm here.
Matt.
Good morning. I'm here.
And Rena.
Hi, Kathy, I'm here.
Good morning. And I'll go back. Pauline.
Yep, I'm here. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
great. I can hear you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, Kathy. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 10th, 2022 monthly meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Great, then let's call for the vote. Kathy, can you do a roll call for the vote?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Martha.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Elaine.
Yes.
Okay. Eric, I believe I skip over you.
Right.
Okay. Matt. John.
Abstain.
Okay. Keisha. Okay. Secretary abstaining.
Correct.
Okay. Nancy.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Rena.
Yes.
And I'll go back. Keisha?
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
technology is having the best of me this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. So that looks like a motion that carries. Thanks, everyone. The next agenda item is the Acting Executive Director's Report, and I will turn it over to Audrey.
Great. Thank you so much, Secretary Beckman. Good morning, members of the board, and welcome to our first meeting of 2023. It is wonderful to see you all. And I want to extend a very special welcome to our chair, Acting Secretary Beckman, and Eric Golko representing the broker community, as he noted. We are so excited to have both of you with us, and I know I speak for the whole Health Connector team when I say that we're looking forward to working with both of you going forward. We feel fortunate to have each of you in your respective posts and look forward to working with incoming Secretary Kate Walsh when she starts as EH Secretary in March. And we look forward to working with the Healy-Driscoll administration more broadly, as we know how committed this administration is to health coverage, affordability, and equity. I also want to note that in the time since our last board meeting together, we have been fortunate to welcome Trish Grant as our new Chief Operating Officer. Trish came on board in December, and it has been wonderful to have her and her depth of experience and know-how at the helm of our operations team. For those who haven't worked with her in the past, Trish recently served as Mass Health COO for 6 years, and her work there, her historical knowledge of the Health Connector, given Mass Health's proximity to us, make her a uniquely ideal leader for the Health Connector's operations as we chart our path forward as a marketplace and continue towards ever-improving member experience and services for the public. Looking ahead to 2023, we expect to be engaging closely with this board in the coming months around strategic planning for the Health Connector's work over the next several years. Our mission to provide health coverage to residents of the Commonwealth, to cover the uninsured, to foster a competitive and fair health insurance market, and to deliver healthcare access and financial protections afforded by coverage are as vital as ever. And as we look forward to deep critical thinking with the board this year, as we consider how we most effectively deliver on that mission in the years ahead. In the more immediate term, though, for today's meeting, we have a full agenda to engage with you on. A few updates are of the more routine sort, though as important as ever. For example, you'll hear today, we just completed a successful open enrollment that saw retention of members near 90% and the addition of more than 31,000 new members to Health Connector coverage. And today you'll hear from staff on proposed annual policy updates to the Commonwealth's individual mandate to carry health coverage, with updates to the affordability schedule and minimum creditable coverage standards. But the most pressing item we're bringing before you today is an update on the extensive preparation the Health Connector is engaged in for the upcoming redetermination of all 2.3 million people in Medicaid coverage in Massachusetts. This redetermination process is kicking off as a result of a recent federal law that will end on March 31st, the maintenance of all Medicaid coverage irrespective of eligibility changes, a federal requirement in place since the start of the federal COVID public health emergency in 2020. While the redetermination work itself will be carried out by the Mass Health Program, this will be a health coverage transition event for the entire state health coverage continuum, and the Health Connector will play a central and vital role in catching many of the individuals who lose eligibility for Mass Health coverage. This will be one of the largest coverage transition endeavors the Connector has undertaken, certainly the largest we've encountered since opening the new HICS during open enrollment 2015. Because this is an unprecedented event in many ways, it is difficult to forecast exactly how many individuals may come to the Connector. But I want to be clear that we will doggedly pursue every single person who may lose Mass Health eligibility and becomes eligible for Connector coverage through creative, persistent, multi-channel communications, outreach, and engagement, and through policy approaches that will make the transition as easy as possible for people. We anticipate 100 to 200,000 new members to enter Health Connector coverage during this process, but we're prepared for even more. We're working hand in glove with our Mass Health colleagues, as well as Healthcare for All through a formal outreach partnership, as well as carriers and others, all working toward a common goal: for the Commonwealth to hold the line on its highest in the nation rate of health insurance coverage. There is an incredible amount of internal work that has been underway for the last year to prepare for this transition, and preparations have intensified and accelerated in recent months. The preparations and contingency planning efforts are extensive. We're taking nothing for granted and sweating the details. But I want to acknowledge that Massachusetts has many tools that other states do not to achieve our goals around ensuring the state holds the line on coverage. For example, we have an integrated eligibility system shared between Mass Health and the Health Connector. We have in the Health Connector a highly visible and trusted marketplace to serve as a coverage landing place. We have a robust outreach and public engagement plan that will build off years of tested and proven community-based outreach methods. We have an individual mandate to incentivize people to avoid coverage gaps rather than winging it. And we have engaged partners in our carriers and providers and state and community leaders committed to ensuring that Massachusetts residents keep covered. The preparation process is all-consuming for the Connector team right now, spanning every dimension of the Connector's functions. And you'll hear more today from Marissa, Trish, and Jason about the details of those preparations and strategies. In closing, we want to underscore to the board how this year presents a great opportunity for the Connector to regain membership we've lost over the course of the federal public health emergency and likely materially increase our membership beyond our previous enrollment high water mark. But it is also an opportunity to reaffirm and strengthen our work to make sure everyone in Massachusetts has access to health insurance and to make the process of getting into coverage that one belongs in as smooth as possible for people who lead busy, complicated lives. We're looking forward to this board's support and insight every step of the way as we move forward. Thank you again for joining us this morning and for your partnership in the mission we all care so deeply for. With that, I will hand it back to Secretary Beckman.
Thanks so much, Audrey. All terrific. And I know we're going to hear in more detail about that most important agenda item of preparing for what's either called the redetermination process or the unwind, depending on your perspective of the terminology being used nationally. So that is in fact the next item on the agenda, a presentation on the recap of open enrollment and the Health Connector readiness for the upcoming Medicaid unwind process. And as Audrey just said, it will be presented by Patricia Grant, Jason Lefferts, and Marissa Wiltman. Marissa, I will kick it to you.
Great. Thank you, Secretary. Good morning, everyone. Next slides. Okay. So good morning. Today, we're pleased to share an update on our open enrollment for 2023 plans, as well as our preparations for the end of Medicaid coverage protections that will have huge implications for our work. While open enrollment was successful in bringing over 30,000 new members into coverage, we're preparing for enrollment gains, as Audrey noted, of 100,000 to 200,000 members by June 2024 as the result of Medicaid protections expiring. On the open enrollment front, open enrollment ran from November 1st to January 23rd, which is our standing due date for February coverage payments. Through 2020, we saw consistent membership gains each year. However, since 2021, we've seen declines in our membership because we're drawing on a smaller pool of potential enrollees, with many individuals who would have transitioned to a qualified health plan or QHP during open enrollment remaining in Mass Health instead. One exception you'll see here is a doubling of our population that receives only federal advance premium tax credits as their subsidy. These benefits were expanded in 2021 as part of the American Rescue Plan and have been essential to helping middle-income residents enroll and stay covered. While we are seeing lower membership now, we're expecting that to turn around in the next 18 months, returning to and exceeding our prior enrollment levels. This open enrollment, we had about 31,000 individuals enroll in Health Connector plans, which is about 12% higher than what we saw last year, but still 40 to 50% below pre-pandemic open enrollments, and it's the silver line in the graph here. We continue to see high retention among our renewing members, around 93%, which is what we saw last year as well. And we were pleased to see that many individuals had a very stable rollover into 2023 coverage with their eligibility verified electronically last fall. In prior years, we've had a much higher population of people whose eligibility couldn't be verified automatically, which often requires members to make additional updates to their accounts or to face steep premium increases. Shopping activity was consistent with prior years, with about 22% of renewing members reviewing their options or shopping for a new plan. Ultimately, many of them ended up staying with their current plan, even if they do shop. Only 6% of renewing members changed their plan through active shopping. The rest maybe did a little window shopping, or they actively confirmed that the plan that they had was the one that they wanted by clicking through and submitting it. So with that, Nancy, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. I haven't tracked this over time, but not in terms of open enrollment when you just addressed, but if we looked at our enrollment pre-pandemic and now, were the losses among the carriers evenly distributed, or did they affect some of the carriers more than others? I mean, I know there's some carriers that have more in the lower FPLs of connector care. So what did that look like in terms of distribution? If you don't know, that's just fine, but I'd love to see that at some point.
Sure, we'd be happy to pull information for you. I would say it's pretty even. We have over the last 5, 6, 7 years seen a shift towards lower cost plans and lower cost tiers, consistent with the affordability challenges that we hear about. But in general, I think somewhere like 8 to 12% maybe are not renewing with any given carrier, and then there are some shifts. We saw people shifting as the result of service area changes this year with Health New England. And then we saw Tufts Premier members transitioning as a result of the .32 merger. So there are little pockets where we will see some changes more than usual. But in general, it seems pretty even, people kind of staying where they are, except for this overall trend toward lower cost coverage. But we'll pull more details for you.
Yeah, I'm asking partly because I'm curious, but also, this issue, which we'll talk about later in terms of as a lot of people move from Mass Health back to us, like what that means in terms of the carrier perspective, and do they end up in Mass Health in plans that have their providers, and so they'll be able to switch back over. So it just might help to understand that dynamic a little bit more if we look at how people have moved over the last 2.5 years.
Sure, we can do that. And we do have a little information, I think, later in the presentation about transitions and about that network overlap. And I will hand it to Trish to talk about the call center.
Good morning. We were able to provide very good service levels at the contact center during open enrollment, with the exception of our peak volume days. Our final day of open enrollment, unfortunately, saw longer than usual wait times and a higher than normal abandonment rate. We have been working with our vendor. We did call back anyone that called on that last day to make sure that we were able to help them and provide the services that they were looking for. We have been working with our vendor to do a root cause analysis as to why those peak days and the last day of open enrollment the service levels were not as good as the rest of open enrollment. In addition, the connector is looking at that last day of open enrollment as a dress rehearsal of sorts for when the Medicaid protections lift in April. And we have gone back and worked with our vendor to make sure that we're able to staff up accordingly and be flexible should call volumes be higher or lower than anticipated. As you can see from the chart at the bottom, our call volume was lower this year. However, overall, our average speed to answer and abandonment rates were far less than they were last year, which was very good for us.
And when you did the root cause analysis, was it just staffing? I mean, it's kind of predictable.
Well, it is predictable
that people do things on the last day. I mean, that certainly happens.
One of the things that we talked about is the last day fell on a Monday this year. And historically, or in any normal call center operations, Mondays tend to be very high call volume days. And I was not here at the time, so wasn't part of those discussions, but I'm not sure if that was discussed, that, Mondays are relatively busy. On top of that, open enrollment, they staffed for the weekend because in previous years, the weekend before the final day were very, very busy. This year, it was not as busy. So they had extra staff on the weekends and clearly not enough staff on Mondays. But further along in the presentation, we'll go over some of the things that we're asking them to do to be prepared, to be flexible and be able to pivot should call volume be higher than expected.
I just have one question. What's the target for average speed to answer and a target for abandonment rate?
So industry abandonment rate should be 3% or less. Our average speed to answer based on our SLA, I believe we have 60 seconds as our target.
Thank
And
you.
Nelson, if he's on, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's our SLA.
Yes, that's right. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I'm just going to give a quick update, wrap up on what we did in terms of outreach and visibility during this open enrollment, where we mixed both broad-based partnerships and in-person community-based activities as we traditionally do. The broad-based partnerships were new. We haven't done a broad-based activity in a while during open enrollment, but this one obviously centered on the unique opportunity presented by the World Cup, which ran from mid-November through mid-December. So the timing was perfect. And it included spots during games and on tournament-related programming on both Fox 25 and Telemundo. Fox was a selection of games throughout the tournament. Telemundo was every game, every related program, and some additional programming as part of the package with Telemundo. In the end, both stations over-delivered on the promised number of spots. The frequency of the high-profile platforms provided a boost to open enrollment, and also to general health connector visibility as we head into enrolling those folks coming off Mass Health later this year. By the end of the tournament, I was getting texts from people who were streaming games, and they were like, "Enough! I've seen enough of your ad. Please stop." Which was, the best backhanded compliment we probably could have gotten.
Man, it helped to have such a good final, Jason.
Yeah, that's the games were great throughout. The drama built up, and the final was amazing. So, it really worked out as well as we possibly could have hoped for. So that over the last 6 or 7 years, we have invested significantly in building community-based relationships and creating a culture of coverage in cities across the state. We continue that work this open enrollment. We started with business walks in October and went throughout and ended with some enrollment visibility events the weekend before the 23rd. Probably the biggest one was an event in Lawrence where over 100 people showed up to get enrolled on the Saturday before the 23rd. And we went out and did our business in terms of signs and flyers. Those proved to be very durable. We'll go to 5 or 6 cities in October, and we'll hit kind of the same locations. And last year's sign is still up, which means people are seeing the Health Connector every single day when they go into these places. So we'll take that last year's, put up this year's, enjoy that year-round visibility. That should be another benefit as we ramp up into April and getting people coming off of Mass Health.
With no questions on open enrollment, I can switch gears, but let me just pause and see if there are any before we move on.
Jason, are we going to advertise during the Women's World Cup?
Yes, I would say, based on what happened this past fall, big sports events like that, and that should be a quality one, should be on our list.
Great.
No matter the timing.
Yeah, because the timing isn't as fortuitous as this one is. But if we have found interest in the real football is strong, we should probably capitalize on that as well.
Yeah, I think we've learned it's good for us to have that visibility year round. People need us all the time, and for us to just be out there, no matter the time, is helpful.
Well, then switching gears now to look ahead to the end of Medicaid protections. In March 2020, a federal COVID package included enhanced Medicaid payments for states on the condition that they not end or reduce members' benefits for the duration of the federal public health emergency. But in December 2022, Congress changed the rules to delink Medicaid protections from the federal public health emergency and end them on March 31st, 2023. There are still guardrails for states to follow to make sure that they aren't dropping members too quickly or without giving them an opportunity to demonstrate their continued eligibility. And Medicaid agencies will use their annual eligibility renewal process to give members that opportunity. Beginning on April 1st, Mass Health will begin a year-long process of conducting renewals on its 2.3 million members to find out what benefits they qualify for and we'll begin to see individuals transition off of Mass Health and shift to the connector. Given the magnitude of this effort and the criticality of ensuring that members land in coverage at the end of it, we've been working very closely internally with Mass Health and with other external stakeholders across 3 broad subject areas: effective communications, ensuring capacity for volume, and making transitions as easy as possible. We are feeling very fortunate to have an integrated eligibility system that we share with Mass Health. And this slide just gives you a sense for how that handoff between agencies takes place. Mass Health will initiate a renewal by gathering data from state and federal sources to see if it can verify someone's continuing eligibility. If they can't, they will send the member a renewal form in the mail and ask them to provide updates within 45 days. Members can respond in a variety of ways: online, by phone, by mail. And then either using the information from this response or the data that was gathered at the beginning of the process. If the member doesn't respond, HICS will redetermine the member's eligibility for both our and Mass Health's programs simultaneously. A member will get notices explaining why they do or don't qualify, and if they do qualify for Health Connector coverage, they can shop and enroll. And then just a slightly deeper dive on the eligibility determination process. Within that kind of overall timeline, ACA rules require that someone who applies for help paying for coverage be considered for both Medicaid and Marketplace programs. And to qualify for a Health Connector plan of any kind, you have to be a state resident, you have to be lawfully present, and you have to not be incarcerated. To further qualify for financial assistance, you have to meet income requirements and not have access to other kinds of insurance, including employer coverage or Mass Health. So HICS will make sure that someone doesn't qualify for Mass Health before determining them eligible for connector care or advanced premium tax credits. And while each agency's rules run behind the scenes to determine eligibility kind of in one transaction, notices from the agencies do go out separately with information specific to each program. So as these eligibility changes occur, we're expecting 100,000 to 200,000 people to enroll in Health Connector coverage as they leave Mass Health over the next 18 months. Because there's likely to be additional movement in and out of coverage, both among this population and our other enrollees, we're projecting to net out at growth of roughly 135,000 individuals beyond where we are today. I think it's important to note that there's a lot of uncertainty around these estimates because we really don't have comparable historical data. Since 2020, we've implemented new subsidies through the American Rescue Plan, for example, among other changes, and we're investing in historic levels of outreach that we expect to meaningfully increase member engagement. While there is uncertainty about where people might land, there's no uncertainty that we will be laser focused on getting every QHP eligible person into coverage with us. We'll be tracking member movement closely, both with our internal data in collaboration with Mass Health and with external partners who have different insights and data on the market, such as DOI and CHIA. We'll be prepared to respond to trends that we see as they develop, building on what works and changing what doesn't. So I'm happy to pause there for questions before I turn it over to Jason on communications topics.
Marissa, can I ask a question about flows?
Sure.
So I think when we spoke earlier in the week, you told us that Mass Health would be redetermining people from April to April. So it's going to be phased redetermination. And is there any reason to think people who might be connector care or just connector eligible will be in earlier waves, or will it be sort of even over the 12-month period? And then
Sure.
And then how are we thinking about whether people will sort of seamlessly transition or drop off, and then we'll have to get them back on? Like just the dynamics of this. I'd love to hear a bit about how you're thinking about that.
Sure. How much time do you have? It is very
I have a lot of time, but
I think the diversity of member experiences that can come out of this process is vast, depending on how engaged somebody is, opening their mail, if they're online or not. That can really have a differential impact in how they go through this process. So we do expect more people who are likely to qualify for QHPs kind of within 2023 and headed into open enrollment 2024. In particular, people who are in what we call a mixed household, where there are some people who are on a Health Connector plan now and some people in Mass Health. We coordinate renewals for that population with Mass Health so that they occur at the same time. When we do our annual redetermination process in August, they're also looking at those mixed households for Mass Health renewals at that time to make it, more seamless for households that they're doing one renewal process rather than hearing from us in August and Mass Health in March. So those people tend to be more likely to come to us, and they'll probably join us for January 2024 based on the way that the timing works out. So, you can see in this graph here, there's a really strong uptick for January, February, March as that open enrollment population transitions into coverage. But we would expect them more front loaded, I would say.
Mhm.
Any other questions before I hand over to Jason? Okay.
Great. Thanks, Marissa. So for about a year now, we've been working with Mass Health and Healthcare for All on a coordinated outreach and education campaign that's going to do two things. We're going to encourage current Mass Health members to update their information in time for effective communications and an accurate renewal. And we want to bring residents moving off of Mass Health into Health Connector coverage. So last year, with Mass Health and Healthcare for All, we did engage in some focus groups with a variety of communities to gauge our understanding of where they were, and these were all Mass Health members. So see how they understood their Mass Health status, and then in the future, their redetermination and enrollment process. And we heard clearly, terms like public health emergency or Medicaid unwinding did not resonate and really wasn't considered important to people. What they want to know is what they need to do and when they need to do it. And they'd like to hear that information from official outlets like Mass Health and other state agencies, and that they will open mail that comes from those sources, particularly if it's kind of looks important and it's relative to their current coverage. So that's what we're going to do. And finally, people want to hear that information and get support available in their first language, which is something that we've all been very cognizant of as we've moved forward on this. So we took all of what we heard and created messaging that we're confident will resonate across all populations, and it'll be consistent throughout the redetermination and enrollment process. So whether something's coming from Mass Health, Healthcare for All, or the Health Connector, they'll all kind of look and feel the same. Give people that sort of subconscious, oh, this is all coming from, about my Mass Health coverage. So people understand they got to do something. So that first work really starts in earnest in March, probably about mid-March. Mass Health and Healthcare for All will start doing significant outreach in communities through direct canvassing. Healthcare for All has a team that's going to be going out and knocking on doors. And then we'll have Healthcare for All is also working with community-based organizations in 15 cities across the state. And those direct activities are going to be supported by an ethnic media campaign to increase awareness. So that's sort of phase one. Marissa, do you want to go to the next slide? So the second part is sort of where we really come in heavy, encouraging people who are moving out of Mass Health to enroll in Health Connector coverage. We're going to use a mix of direct communications, broad-based messaging, and community-based events to get people signed up. For direct communications, we're going to use every tool we have available. That's going to include mail, email, phone calls, including robocalls, and texting. These communications will include high up messaging that the state requires everyone to have coverage, right? We want to remind people that they need to have health insurance. This is not really an option. That we're the place that provides help paying for health insurance. And we're also a place where you can find quality plans that meet state standards and aren't scam plans. I think that's where that broad-based messaging is really going to help us, just in terms of visibility, so people are aware of us and the benefits that we provide. And so if they go on Google and search and we pop up, they're going to gravitate towards us a little bit more than maybe otherwise. And then once a Mass Health member is redetermined out of that coverage, we expect they're going to hear from us about weekly, some way or another, for about 3 months. And that's going to include multiple messages around enrollment deadlines, particularly in those sort of more urgent robocalls and texts, right on people's phones. encouraging them to take action right around the 23rd of every month. And the paid and earned media will be designed to improve visibility, reinforce that messaging about being a safe, trusted source. And so, this is going to be a long haul for some people. It's going to be probably a lot of noise right off when this thing starts, and maybe it quiets down for a little while. And then in August or September, suddenly somebody gets something in the mail. It's going to be time for them to take action. So we want to have that consistent sort of visibility throughout. So whether somebody's moving in April, May, or September, October, they're on kind of the same timing, getting the same material and getting the same support. The community relationships that we've developed, we're going to leverage those through visibility events in local activities and through enrollment events. We plan to hold up to 20 enrollment events around the state. That's going to give people the chance to come in, sit down with a navigator or a CAC, take care of whatever they need to do. They need to update their account and pick a plan, they'll do it. If they need to do more, they'll do it. If they just need to pick a plan, they'll do it. Whatever it is, they can come in, get it taken care of, and be covered walking out the door. So the plan is for those events to be held in the afternoon and into the evening, include food and activities for children who might be coming in with their parents to make sure, there's something for them to be occupied with. Those will be heavily promoted in advance in local media and through direct communication to people within a reasonable community event. And our goal is to get 200 to 300 people to each of these events. We hope that they will be very busy. We did things like this fairly similarly in 2014, 2015, when we rolled out the new HICS. These should be a little more energized and hopefully even better attended. I think, we were like 150, 200 a few years ago, but I think with this sort of plan to do a lot of upfront promotion, we should be able to hit those numbers. And then in the last few months, we've expanded capacity of the Navigator program. We've added 3 new organizations, Upham's Corner and Common Square Community Health Centers, and the Massachusetts Alliance of Portuguese Speakers is also on board. We've also provided additional resources to 12 Navigator organizations in areas where we anticipate larger numbers of residents moving out of Mass Health over the next year to ensure they have the best access to enrollment support possible. We're going to go to the next slide. I just wanted to take a moment just to talk again about the importance of the direct messaging we're going to use during this campaign. Over on the right side is the Spanish version of the mailer that's going to go to people when they're moving out of Mass Health. This will be the first piece of mail they get from us. Specifically, you're moving out of Mass Health, time to come to the connector. Pretty up high in this document is you got to have health insurance and we can help you pay for it. Those are the messages we are just going to hammer over and over and over again. But this look and feel, the heart design and the color scheme, that's going to be the things people see consistently throughout. Starting with the first material that Healthcare for All drops at somebody's door in March, all the way through this project. So our goal in the long run is for people to recognize it, understand it's part of this larger effort, and hopefully we get people to move quickly. Undoubtedly there are people who will wait until they go to the doctor and don't have health insurance anymore. But hopefully with this sort of 3 months of heavy activity, when somebody does run into that, they're going to say, wait a minute, I got something in my email last week about this, and they can go get it taken care of. And so then, do you want to go to the next slide? Great. So here's just a couple of examples of the member communications above and beyond the mailer. If you squint, you can probably see in the email, the language about the state mandate and help paying for coverage. Robos and text in particular need to be very short. Texts are under 160 characters, including spaces. So that's why that message is really boiled down to the very basics. So the message is very direct. It's designed to hammer the deadline, spur action, and it should supplement the more expansive messaging we have. Robos have been very effective in the past in terms of spurring activity during open enrollment with our eligible but unenrolled populations. We haven't really taken on a texting campaign like this in the past, but we do know that texts are very effective, and we anticipate that texting your deadlines will generate enrollment activity. So, we have pretty much everything locked and ready to go. Once we start getting the data on who's coming off, they're going to hear from us early and often.
Nancy.
Thanks, Jason. And can you talk a little bit, or someone, about how we're coordinating with the carriers? They obviously have an interest in not having people fall out of coverage. So I assume that they're planning some things, hopefully collaboratively with us.
Yeah.
And then as someone who's worked in this market for a long time and watched a lot of instances where there's a lot of chaos and churn and things, there are also then opportunities for scammy things to happen. I'd love to hear, and maybe from some of our other state colleagues on the board, like, how are we gearing up to deal with that potential as well?
So on the carrier side, we have been talking to carriers for a while about making sure they have the messaging they want and need. And, I think that, we will have a toolkit. We do toolkits for open enrollment and a bunch of other things. We'll have a social media toolkit ready to go. Carriers will have that. Some carriers will be able to reach out to people they know who are, in a mass health plan now, and work with them. And we've been talking to carriers already about participating in the enrollment events. That gives them an opportunity to come in and provide information to people. If they have a wait in particular, they can gather some information. Find out, if their doctor's in a plan, right? Like, they're sitting there waiting, they can check and make sure going in where they can get coverage with their doctor. And then on scam plans, this is something that, we obviously take this very seriously. We talk about it a lot publicly. I think that's where, like I said, I think one of the things that we want to hammer in our broad-based messaging is we are a safe place. Not only can we help you pay for your health insurance, but you're good. We continue to work on search engine optimization. We continue to invest more in paid search, so we pop higher up when people are searching. But it is something that really all state exchanges are, grappling with and trying to, fight the fight as best we can. There's no real, unfortunately, there's not a perfect solution, or we'd all be using it. Instead, we're fighting it.
Nancy, if I could just jump in there, and then I would love to hear Martha's thoughts on that topic about kind of junk plans and non-compliant plans. You're absolutely right that often those entities will prey on people who they know will be losing coverage or are confused. And like you said, there's sort of chaos in the market. So I think we're on guard for that. I think our goal from an outreach perspective, as Jason noted, we often do include messaging about how important it is to understand we are the official place to come. This is all the vetted coverage. This is the only place you can get real help to pay for coverage, et cetera. So our goal is to be louder than all of those entities that will be trying to nip at the ankles of the state, basically, and picking off people that they can trick into buying things that won't actually be there for them when they need it. So I think there's that piece. I will just know we reached out to our colleagues in the Attorney General's office about this topic recently to just make sure it's on their radar. They're always outstanding at watching market behavior and taking action where appropriate when there's untoward activity going on, as same with our colleagues at DOI. But I think we all collectively need to be particularly on guard this year and make sure that there's not inroads for those bad actors to put people in harm's way. I would also note, There are some regulations at the federal level around what we might call, non-compliant or junk plans that are on the Biden administration's regulatory agenda for this year to clean up and tighten. And I think the state-based marketplace community and others can help link for them the connection that's important to do anyway, but particularly for this year, because there is going to be so much churn and transition, and we want to make sure people get from the right coverage to the right coverage. But I'll welcome.
Yeah, that's all great to hear. And as somebody who's a regulator for a long time, I never underestimate the creativity of people to find ways to scam people. So it's great to hear that you're collaborating with the AG. Look forward to Martha has her hand up, but I think of any point in this journey of health coverage where there's really, it's ripe for, bad things to happen. I think we're about to enter it. So it's great to hear all the work that you're doing.
Martha.
Hi, and Eric, I hope it's okay if I jump over you unless you have something to, okay. So I'd say that those two issues are things that we've been talking internally about in DOI since we basically got the official word that the public health emergency was ending. And we are talking internally, and also we've touched base with the connector, and we're sifting through how we're going to coordinate with Mass Health on our end as well to help communicate. I think part of our job also is we've been undergoing the exercise of going through our past bulletins, especially the COVID bulletins, to make sure that we are aware of which ones may be subject for updating based on updated guidance from either DPH or the feds. So that's another project that we've been working on as well. We're sensitive to the fact that we may be needed. Our interaction with carriers may be a little different than I think as we're thinking about the transition, because we're going to need to make sure that we're communicating with them and updating them on any kind of updated expectations that we have. Luckily, Chapter 260 gives us a good baseline for the transition, but that's been a lot of our focus on as well, making sure that we're making everybody know what the rules are and how and when they're changing. But yeah, the junk plans is also frankly, it's top of mind for me. It's one of my first things I thought of as well. So we'll be actively trying to get any information out that we can. Yep.
Eric?
Yeah, just a quick question on the timing. From the moment that a consumer, an individual gets a notice from Mass Health that they're now ineligible, how much time between that notice and when they are kicked off the plan and have to find something else?
It's a great question. Mass Health has a provision in their regulations that does extend. So normally it would be 14 days from the notice of that termination that someone would lose their Mass Health coverage. Mass Health did put a provision in its regulations to extend that for people who are transitioning to a subsidized Health Connector plan. So they'll either, depending on when in the month, typically it would end up being the end of the following month. So if you got a notice today that you were going to lose eligibility for Mass Health and instead you'd get Connector Care coverage, your Mass Health would end March 31st. So it does give enough time for someone to enroll in the plan and make sure that they're covered for March 1st so that they don't have a gap. But it does depend on that subsidy eligibility component.
So it is a little bit close. If I think of like the Edge, if someone gets a notice the end of February, they have till the end of March to be on another plan. And usually with the connector, you got to have everything in by like the third week, right, to have coverage for the following month. So that'll give people maybe 3 weeks, worst case, to figure it out, to get reached out to get other coverage. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and we're acting quickly. When we get that notice, we're able to send out a communication to that person pretty quickly. Like Mass Health sends us a file, then we're like turning it around pretty quick and saying, hey, we just heard you're turned off and you're out of coverage in a few weeks. Does that happen pretty fast?
Yes, that's the beauty of our integrated eligibility system. That will happen at the same
Right.
time. So if you were doing it online, you would instantly see Mass Health is ending. You now qualify for this Health Connector plan. Click here to shop right now. You can enroll in your plan and you can pay your premium online in that transaction. As I noted earlier, we do worry a little bit about the population that's not online. So they've mailed a form in. It's now been a few weeks. It's been processed. They'll get notices in the mail from both agencies that say, your Mass Health is ending, but you're now approved for connector coverage. Here's how you can enroll. So I think not doing this online does add a little bit of delay, but certainly they would get all the same messaging with regard to what they qualify for, and it would happen at the same time that Mass Health and the Health Connector would make their decisions via our online system.
Thank you.
So as mentioned earlier, we've been working closely with our contact center vendor, Accenture, to be prepared for the increased volume starting in April. As a first step, we retained our open enrollment staff who were hired to augment the existing staff. Usually our practice is that we don't keep those staff members at the end of open enrollment, but we have done so this year in anticipation of the end of the Medicaid protections. We're also increasing our tier 1 staff by an additional 135 to 170 FTEs to take incoming calls and chat requests. In some months, that's twice what we would normally have staffing our contact center. We have also requested an increase in the number of part-time employees so that we can front load earlier days in the week, which are much busier than later days in the week. We are increasing our tier 2 escalation, quality training, and supervisory staff commensurate with the number of tier 1 staff that are hired. We have asked that all paper processing and walk-in staff either be cross-trained or provided a refresher training to take incoming calls in the event that we're asking them to help us due to unanticipated high volume. We're also evaluating options for extended call center hours, and we're working with Mass Health to ensure there are escalation processes between the two agencies to assist any caller who has coverage under one agency but ends up in the call center for the other agency. Most importantly, we will monitor in real time our service levels, including transfers to and from Mass Health, to make any adjustments as needed. On the next slide, for document process.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, Nancy has a question.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry, if just tell me if you're gonna get to something. These points of connection with Mass Health are obviously really critical.
Correct.
And having the integrated eligibility system will be a huge enhancement over some of the prior periods where we had a lot of disruption. Is Mass, I know we work collaboratively with Mass Health. We obviously don't have control over them. They're an autonomous agency and they're a lot bigger than we are. Are we confident that they're going to be staffing up appropriately? So if that, because if everyone isn't staffed up enough, that's going to be a problem for us.
So they are increasing staff both in their contact center as well as their enrollment center staff. So I don't know their final numbers, but I do know that they have increased staff in both areas.
Yeah, and this is obviously something Secretary Beckman, I'm sure, is on
Definitely, yes.
your radar screen. But, in a couple points in the past, we can all have views on how certain things happened, but lack of as effective collaboration as it could have been clearly did not redound to the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth in different eras.
So I can tell you that Mass Health is quite focused on this whole process as well in general, because of course it's a key, it's like a, it's a lifetime event for that program, but also the importance of connecting with staying in close collaboration with the connector and with other communities, trying to figure out which they're trying to identify populations that they think are not going to be eligible, populations that may be eligible for connector, and other potential destinations for coverage. So we've been talking about that. I think the collaboration is quite good.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it couldn't be better. So these are good conversations to have, and it's good that you raise questions about it.
Yeah, and I think also having Trish with us now will give us like someone with
Yes.
really deep expertise.
Yes.
So that'll be great.
Keisha.
Yes, thank you so much. I had a question in terms of the attrition rate. Do you have that stat for this group in the call center by chance?
I don't have the Accenture attrition rate, but when we're talking about the FTEs here, this is net. So this is not, we're bringing in 135 and potentially don't have 135 as a net. It's them bringing in a gross number, and based on their historical attrition, we will get the 135 to 170 net.
You remain there, I see, okay. Because that was a key point, is that obviously when you're hiring, that loss of knowledge chips away at the efficiency in terms of ramping up. So I was just curious to that stat. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, document processing. So we will be increasing the number of staff in our document processing department. It will be just shy of double what we have right now. The document processors work on inputting scanned paper applications and supporting documentation into the HICS system for those applicants that don't complete applications online. Given we have an integrated eligibility system, CCA staff will be able to assist Mass Health if needed in processing to help keep those queues down. We have also requested that our renewal forms for mixed households, and those are households that have both Connector and Mass Health members, be tagged and scanned so they can be indexed to a specific area in our processing system, so we can work those down as soon as they come in, rather than having them wait in some of the potentially longer queues for processing. And finally, some external resources. So we're taking a belt and suspenders approach, and we'll engage a second vendor who can provide us somewhere between 30 and 60 FTEs. Those staff will help provide document processing in the event that we move the Accenture document processors to take inbound calls. And that staff will also be available to do some outbound calls for us to members to educate them about the upcoming redeterminations, and to discuss the importance of responding to any notices that are received during this redetermination period.
So we're really looking to make this process as easy as possible because it's critical that we not lose ground on our health insurance coverage rates. We've always been a national leader in our insured rate, and we saw a statistically significant decrease in our uninsured population from 2019 to 2021 that we'd like to maintain. We have a lot of tools in mind to support this goal. First, we intend to open a special enrollment period from April 1st to November 23rd to make sure that people who need coverage can get it. Beyond that, we've increased opportunities for income to be electronically verified, reducing the need for people to send in paper. We've launched our automatic enrollment process for those who opt in and can get a no premium plan. And we're focusing on tools and guidance to support specific populations, such as the self-employed or people who are experiencing financial hardships. We're also aware that many people will have an offer of employer-sponsored insurance in the mix as they leave Mass Health coverage. And we're planning to educate individuals and employers on how that transition to employer coverage could work. And Nancy, this speaks to your earlier question, I think, about our partnership with health plans. Many of our carriers also participate in Mass Health, and so they have unique insights into this population and existing relationships with these members that will be very helpful as we move forward. And we've highlighted two main areas of work here: communications and outreach and continuity of care. So Jason touched on a few of the communications points with regard to toolkits and the carrier's ability to kind of share their member data from the Medicaid side of the house to the QHP side of the house to let people know about marketplace coverage. And then on the continuity of care front, I think you asked earlier about overlapping provider networks. We did ask carriers for that. their assessment of that last summer. And it seemed like a relatively high rate overall of network overlap in their offerings, as well as in the number of Mass Health members who are using an overlapping provider and will be able to find that provider if they enroll in that qualified health plan. And we've also been talking with the carriers about prior authorization, so people who are undergoing care, making sure that there aren't delays as they transition coverage. Matt.
So just to your point about employer-sponsored coverage, and Audrey's aware of this, but the GIC's annual enrollment period is actually kind of overlaps with some of this nicely, I guess, at the front end. So our annual enrollment for fiscal year 24 benefits, which of course starts on July 1st of this year, runs from April 5th through May the 3rd. So to the degree that that's helpful for you all to know in your interaction with members, I just wanted to share that.
That's great. Thank you. So in terms of looking ahead, we just threw a ton of information at you. We're happy to take additional questions, but we really hope that you took away that helping individuals and families find the coverage that's right for them as Medicaid protections end is our top priority this year. And we're really pulling out all the stops to make sure that it's successful and we get everyone across the line. And so thanks to you all and to our external partners for your collaboration in these efforts. And we'll be in regular communication as we go forward. Nancy, do you have a question?
Yeah, so thanks. That was a really wonderful overview, and it's clear how thoughtful and detailed all of the planning and anticipation is. So I know that's a lot of hard work on behalf of all of you. So thank you for that. One partner we didn't talk about is Accenture, which runs the contact center. And I guess, obviously their performance is going to be absolutely critical to how this goes too. So this is a comment, and I guess a question is that I hope they understand how high stakes this is for us, particularly as one of the states that's, as we've talked about on this call, been a leader. And I guess what are we doing to ensure that their execution in all these areas is going to be as close to perfect as it possibly can be?
Thank you for that, Nancy. I'll let Trish chime in, who's been working by the hour with them on this very topic. We did have a meeting with Accenture earlier this week on many topics, but chiefly on how central and critical perfect execution is at the contact center level for this unwind process, how important it is to the Health Connector, how important it is to the Commonwealth. But Trish, I would ask you to add anything else there on that piece. But that is a message they are hearing very clearly from us at this point.
And I know Trish is an excellent person to deliver it to.
Perfect person.
I don't know if Accenture agrees with that, but yeah, so they have actually escalated our request for extra staffing and the work that we're doing within their organization. And we have met with some of the folks higher up in the organization that aren't usually involved with the day-to-day to come in and speak with us. And they're very committed to helping us get from point A to point B for this by April, and then during the 12-month redetermination period. So we're confident that the partnership with them will be successful. And I think we have what we did when we looked at call volume, we actually took pre-COVID numbers as our baseline and layered on top of that our expected contacts per member or per redetermined individual, and added that, and then took a look at anticipated call volume. So we've really spent a lot of time thinking about the different layers to that. And I believe that we are staffed or will be staffed above, hopefully, fingers crossed, what we anticipate the call volume to be based on past performance. We have had discussions with Mass Health as well about their percentage of contacts per member and their call volume. We have taken into account, like I said, earlier in the week versus later in the week. And then there are also seasonal variances. And so we don't have straight line FTEs across this. We have more obviously during open enrollment, less during months that are slower. We expect some tick in volume in April, but not necessarily day one, where we will be staffed higher in May when that 45-day period ends for anyone that got their redetermination in early April. So we really have spent a lot of time looking at volumes by week, by time of day, by days of the week.
Yeah, I'm sure our planning is great. And I think we just need to be mindful that this is happening in 49 other states, many of which are bigger than we are, many of which probably generate more revenue for some of our vendors. So I'm completely confident in the ability of all of you to hold their feet to the fire. And this is partly in case they're listening in, just to say that we understand the centrality of this to success here.
Thank you, Nancy. Agreed.
Yeah.
So an observation and a question. So it occurs to me as I'm listening to this presentation that there's going to be a lot happening over the coming months around health insurance. Certainly the changes that we're hearing about and learning about in this presentation, the GIC through our reprocurement is making a variety of changes. And then of course there are a number of other impacts to insurance more broadly as a result of the end of the public health emergency and the unwinding of a number of other insurance related provisions. Martha at the DOI mentioned some of the ones that they're working on as well. And we will be doing much of that same work. So it just occurs to me that there's a lot going on here, and I would put it in the category of disruption, not saying that that's good or bad. It's just change and disruption. That's going to be a lot for those with a variety of different types of insurance will have to deal with. The question is around, well, my question is, so I'm presuming that the loss of mass health coverage through a redetermination would be a qualifying event that would allow someone to enroll in other coverage. And if that is, if you can confirm that for me, is there a reason that we did a special enrollment period as opposed to handling those as qualifying events? Am I thinking about that right?
Yes. So loss of minimum essential coverage is a qualifying event under our regulations. It's also a qualifying event under HIPAA. But, we know that people will have very different experiences of this. Some people may not send that form back, kind of lose it under their pile of to-dos. And when they go to the doctor 3 or 4 months later, they're realizing that they're without coverage. And we wanted to make sure that we were accounting for that kind of level of confusion or disruption, as you called it, to make sure that there was no question that people should come to us if they were uninsured and find out how to move forward with that. So that was our kind of major source of thinking on that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Eric.
Thank you. I'll just say that, speaking on behalf of the employer community, I'm not sure they know this is coming.
Yeah.
And so I'm just offering whatever help I can provide as representing all the brokers and all our clients throughout the Commonwealth. Almost everybody uses somebody like me. So if we can at all help in getting the word out to our community and thus all the employers, hey, this is coming over the next few months. You're going to be getting these requests. They're legit. And here's how you can handle it. So I'm just offering that.
Thank you, Eric. I just want to acknowledge and appreciate that, and we will take you up on that. I think Marissa touched on it briefly in some of her slides, but we are preparing to put together collateral for both employers, brokers, and kind of turnkey content that they can give to employees to help make sure they're educating employees about if you're on Mass Health and you get this blue envelope in the mail, and make sure the employer knows to communicate to the employee you are benefits eligible, and here's how we can get you onto ESI if that makes sense for them, if they're benefits eligible. So we want to make that as kind of turnkey and easy as possible for employers and brokers and others who work in or around the ESI space, because you're right, that will be a big transition, and we'll need help from the employer and broker community, and we'll work to make it as easy as possible for them to give that help. So thank you.
We only have 30 days. We can't extend on the private side.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
really great, Audrey. This is Keisha. I just want to acknowledge that. I'm very impressed that you guys have that all covered.
Thank you, Keisha.
Nancy.
Yeah, and just to give a shout out and an emphasis, I forget who said we have to be really loud. I don't remember if you, Audrey, or Jason, or someone else, but the important, for the reasons that Eric and Matt and others have talked about, and everyone else, I think we can't say enough about how important outreach is going to be and how important paid media is going to be if we want to be the loudest voice as all these other things are going on. So it's great that that is clearly a central part of its strategy. And, I would just say as a board member, I think we really need to look at, do we have enough resources devoted in both of those areas, particularly as we've heard, all this other noise that's going to be in the market as well.
I think that's really important. Thank you, Nancy. The other thing that I think, round up comments that others have made in the last few minutes, the importance of reaching the employer community and maybe the carriers and, who provide either administrative services or insurance for the employer community. That sort of ecosystem is where some of these folks that roll off the Medicaid rolls are going to surface or should surface. And I know you're doing outreach there, but like maybe just hearing a little bit more about those measures and ensuring that we've gotten the input from all the board members on how best to reach that community through those different communication channels that we have, the carriers, the brokers, the business associations, maybe even associations of HR professionals in New England might be good to have on a list for distribution of some of those materials and notification, maybe in a special meeting or something, would be good. The good news is now many of them may have virtual meetings, so you can have staff drop in for 15 minutes and give a presentation on this, hopefully in the next quarter.
Oh, that's great. That's a great suggestion. And I think as our work with Mass Health too is deepening, I think we're kind of deepening our kind of roadshow capabilities to be going out and talking to really everybody under the sun in the state, all the different kinds of employer associations, providers, carriers, and others, and making sure we're walking in with asks that are, we're making it as easy as possible for them for how to help the whole effort and have that be coordinated. So, and I love the idea about HR associations as well. So we'll round out some of our planning around those different entities we can have touch points with outside of the state apparatus. Great.
Matt.
Just a quick follow-up to that. I know there's a Boston Business Journal event around healthcare issues in the coming weeks. Might be good to drop a note to one of the panelists there. I believe Laura Pellegrini from Mass Association Health Plan is going to be there. So she made, and I'm also on a panel with the business group on health in front of a number of, I think, brokers and consultants in the coming weeks as well. So I'll use that as an opportunity to flag it for them. So I think there's lots of opportunities if we keep our eyes open and I'll have this in mind to use those platforms.
Thank you.
I think you all have stimulated a lot of thought on the part of board members, and I think it's permissible for everyone to email Audrey or other staff members with your ideas about how, here's another idea on outreach, and maybe we can round those up at the next board meeting. Just here's what we've done on that.
That sounds great.
I think Feline. Hi.
Hi. I was just going to echo, our part as labor organizations in the outreach as well. I mean, in particular, our 70,000 PCAs, and we've tried and tested, and I think we've had it down to a science on how to reach folks for important, quick information that they should know, and so utilizing that space as well as our other partner labor organizations. I'm also on the AFL-CIO, which obviously covers most of our labor partners, and so sharing it there as well.
Terrific.
I mean, if we think of this as sort of the 16th anniversary of like all the work we did when the law passed initially to get people covered, and the broad-based coalitions and collaboration, labor and faith community and everybody. I mean, I think you all obviously have thought much more about this than I have, but I think that's kind of the scale of what we need to be thinking about and the depth and scope of it.
Agreed. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everyone.
Well, terrific presentation and terrific discussion by everyone. Thank you very much. The next set, can we close out the discussion on this for now? Understanding that we'll be talking about it all year. The next item on the agenda is a presentation on topics related to the individual mandate for calendar year 2024. There is a vote today on that as well. And I think we're going to hear from Marissa and Kayla Sherry.
Thank you. I'm just going to pull up my presentation. Okay. And I'm actually going to kick it over to Marissa to start us off.
Great. Thank you, Kayla. So today we'll walk through two items related to the state's individual mandate, the affordability schedule and deductible limits under minimum creditable coverage standards. I'll provide a little background on these items, and then Kayla will walk through the specific updates for calendar year 2024. So the state's 2006 healthcare reform law included an individual mandate requiring adults to maintain health insurance if they had affordable coverage available or face a penalty. This served as a model for a federal version of the individual mandate that was in place alongside ours from 2014 to 2019 before it was effectively repealed. In creating the requirement to carry coverage, the statute made the Health Connectors Board of Directors responsible for several aspects of mandate implementation, defining what coverage is, defining affordability, and managing hardship exemptions. Today's presentation touches on the first two of those areas, the coverage standards and affordability. And these items have a wide reach, with roughly 5 million state tax filers impacted by these policies. So I'll turn it over to Kayla for the specifics.
All right, thanks, Marissa. So I'll start with the affordability schedule first. So the affordability schedule primarily helps taxpayers determine if they owe a penalty or not. It also informs connector care premiums such that connector care plans are deemed affordable, and eligible individuals who fail to enroll would be assessed a penalty unless they requested a hardship exemption. Importantly, the affordability schedule does not impact employers or carriers. It sets no requirements that plans be priced in the affordable ranges, and it does not penalize an employer if an employee who is offered affordable coverage does not enroll. The affordability schedule also works independently of federal subsidy calculations. So this slide shows how the affordability standards and enrollee contributions for connector care interact. We have a set of affordability standards for individuals that were adopted in 2015 as part of our transition to a schedule based on a percentage of income rather than a flat dollar amount. For example, you see that individuals with incomes from 150.1% to 200% of the federal poverty level are considered able to spend 2.8% of their income on premiums in 2023. And based on 2.8% of the household incomes associated with that cohort is a range of monthly insurance premiums that individuals in that income bracket would be considered able to afford. So 2.8% of income for individuals earning $20,386 to $27,180 per year results in monthly premiums from $48 to $68, or I'm sorry, $48 to $63. The lowest end of that range is then used as the connector care enrollee contribution for that income bracket. So individuals at 150.1 to 200% FPL would qualify for connector care plan type 2B and be guaranteed access to a plan at $48 per month. When we look to the affordability schedules for couples and families, we ensured that a 2-adult household would be considered able to afford 2 connector care premiums. So for couples, again, at 150.1 to 200% FPL, the percentage of income in the schedule needs to make sure that 2 $48 enrollee contributions combined is considered affordable. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit about how the affordability schedule and connector care interact, but we can stop here and take any questions before moving on. Okay. So our general approach to the affordability schedule in the past has been to maintain consistent percentages of income deemed affordable. Each year, the income in dollars associated with each bracket of the schedule has increased according to updates in the federal poverty guidelines issued by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Similar to last year, this year's proposed approach addresses a larger than usual increase in those federal poverty guidelines as they are sensitive to inflation, which we all know has been an issue in the past couple of years. If we were to use the same percentage of income as we did last year and continue to maintain the link between the schedule and connector care enrollee contributions, we would see enrollee contribution increases of 6.25 to 7.5% over 2023 instead of 2 to 3.6%. So to mitigate increases in both affordability standards for low-income couples and families, as well as in connector care enrollee contributions, we're proposing slight decreases in the affordability standards for individuals as noted in the table on the left. And these slight decreases result in the $1 to $5 increases in connector care contributions as shown on the right. And so I can stop here again and just pause for any questions. All right, so if no questions, here is the schedule for individuals for 2024. Or the proposed schedule, I should say. And for couples and for families. And if no questions, we respectfully request your approval on the schedule.
So the Health Connector staff have requested that the board approve the issuance of the affordability schedules for individuals, couples, and families for calendar year 2024 as set forth in the staff recommendations we've just seen as final. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
Secretary Beckman, I just want to say I think it's a very good approach to moderate the impact of the inflationary period that we've just gone through. It seems very balanced, and so kudos to the staff.
I agree. Thank you, Nancy, for bringing that forward. I think it's an important recognition of the impact on families and the importance of trying to make sure that essentials in life are affordable, and the state and the country have defined health insurance as essential. So thank you for that. If there's no further discussion, then let's run through the vote. Do we do roll call vote on this?
We do. So Kathy can do the roll.
Great.
Okay. All right. Martha,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Keisha,
Yes.
Secretary,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
I believe Rena dropped off, but let me double check. Rena? Okay, she has dropped off. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. And the motion carries.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So I can transition to minimum creditable coverage. So as a component of the individual mandate, MCC, or minimum creditable coverage, tells a taxpayer when they're able to check the box to indicate that they had health insurance. Carriers and plan sponsors remain free to design a plan as they see fit, but individuals may choose to enroll or not based on whether the plan counts as coverage at tax time. MCC deductible limits do not require deductible changes for consumers. And MCC deductible limits are independent of federal rules around high deductible health plans, which the IRS issues annually. MCC deductible limits were included in the original 2007 regulations at $2,000 for an individual and $4,000 for a family. In 2019, the board voted to institute a regulatory provision that would allow MCC deductible limits to increase annually according to the federal premium adjustment percentage used for several indexing calculations, including one that already increased the allowed out-of-pocket maximum under MCC. This change addressed the increasing number of plans that were generally robust and considered the market standard, but failed to allow residents to attest to creditable coverage and avoid tax penalties. It also addressed the increasing difficulty of designing plans within reasonable cost sharing requirements outside of the deductible when staying within actuarial value constraints under the Affordable Care Act. This year, applying the premium adjustment percentage methodology results in a proposed 2024 allowable MCC deductible of $2,950 for an individual and $5,900 for a family, which is an increase of 3.5% over 2023. Within that, a plan may offer a separate prescription drug deductible of up to $360 for an individual and $720 for a family. The increased limit is not meant to encourage higher deductibles, and it doesn't automatically result in higher deductibles, but it's meant to reflect market standards and avoid individuals being unfairly penalized after enrolling in reasonable market standard coverage. So I'll stop there for questions on the proposed deductible limits for MCC for 2024 before we ask for a vote. Hearing none, we would request your vote once again on the proposed MCC deductible limits for 2024.
Thanks, Kayla. So you have all heard that the connector staff is requesting that the board approve the deductible limits for plan year 2024 as set forth in the staff recommendations that we've just reviewed. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Then Kathy, would you call the roll and let's take the vote?
Okay. Okay. Martha,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Keisha,
Yes.
Secretary,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kathy, are you there? We lost you.
I'm here. We're all set.
Okay. Oh, we're done. Sorry. So it sounds like to me the motion carries. Sorry about that. Great. I believe that brings us to the close of the formal agenda. Are there any other items that anyone would like to bring forward?
Secretary Beckman, I think just to thank the staff. I mean, they
Yeah.
always work really hard, but and I'm always so impressed during these meetings, but we're obviously entering yet another time that has required incredible work, and it's going to continue to do that. So I think it's both thanks for the work that's been done, and thank you for everything we know we're going to need to do as well.
I completely agree, Nancy. Thank you for that comment. I've always been impressed with the connector and your operations. The preparation that I've been briefed on, and I think we've all seen reflected in the presentations today, is beyond commendable. And I'm also counting on the board members to continue to come up with ideas and suggestions for how we can be even better prepared. This is going to be a momentous year for us in this endeavor to make sure we keep everyone covered. I think we are really well positioned with the connector staff that we have, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
And Audrey, good job in this role.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Yes, absolutely.
I have the best team.
Well, it is a great team. Let's just say that. At this point, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, then Kathy, can we take the vote on this motion?
Of course we can. All right, Martha,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Keisha,
Yes.
Secretary,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks everyone for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.